Next time, bring an air freshener.
The text arrived at 2:47 a.m., glowing like a curse on my phone screen. You have no idea what your wife's been up to. I was elbow deep in sewage water beneath our house, trying to fix a busted pipe that had been backing up for weeks. The irony wasn't lost on me, dealing with literal crap while my life was apparently full of it too. My name's Jake Morrison, and I've been a contractor for 22 years. I fix things. It's what I do, what I thought I was good at. The basement reeked of mold and failure. Our house, a 1960s brick ranch in what used to be a decent neighborhood outside Cleveland, had been under renovation for 3 years now. Every weekend, I'd promised Sarah we'd finish the kitchen, fix the leaky roof, replace the warped hardwood floors. Every Monday, she'd remind me how her corporate salary was the only thing keeping us afloat. "Jake, are you still down there making noise?" Sarah's voice drifted from upstairs, sharp with annoyance. I wiped my hands on a dirty rag and climbed the creaking stairs. Sarah stood in our kitchen, perfectly put together even at nearly 3 a.m., talking quietly on her phone. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she wore to work, and she had that look, the one that said I was interrupting something important. "Mom, I can't talk about this now," she whispered into the phone, not noticing me in the doorway. Her mother's voice was loud enough that I could hear every word. "When are you going to tell my son-in-law that those kids aren't his?" My blood turned to ice water. Sarah glanced around nervously. "Not until they finish college. Their real father can't afford it anyway. Jake's been a good provider, even if he's—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Limited." I stepped back into the shadows, my heart hammering against my ribs. 20 years of marriage. 2 kids, Emma, 17, and Tyler, 15. Kids I'd taught to ride bikes, helped with homework, worried about when they stayed out late. "Besides," Sarah continued, "Jake's so clueless he'll never figure it out. And if he does, well, I've got enough evidence of his drinking and anger issues to get full custody in the house." The conversation ended, and I heard Sarah's heels clicking across the kitchen floor toward the bedroom. I stood there in the dark basement doorway, sewage smell still clinging to my clothes, trying to process what I'd just heard. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "Check your wife's gym bag, the small pocket." I should have ignored it. Should have confronted Sarah directly, demanded the truth like a normal husband. But something cold and calculating had settled in my chest, replacing the shock. If my wife wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules first. Sarah's gym bag sat by the front door, packed for her early morning workout. I unzipped the small pocket and found a second phone, a cheap burner I'd never seen before. The screen lit up when I touched it, revealing dozens of text messages. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Jake's working late tonight. Come over at 8. You make me feel things my husband never could." The messages were to someone named Derek Chen, Sarah's business associate from the marketing firm where she worked as a senior account manager. I scrolled through months of explicit photos, detailed plans for hotel meetups, and discussions about their future together. But it was the most recent conversation that made my hands shake with rage. "Derek, when are you leaving him?" Sarah, "Soon. I'm documenting everything, his drinking, the times he loses his temper, his jealousy issues. My lawyer says it'll be easy to prove he's unfit." Derek, "What about the kids?" Sarah, "They're not his problem anymore. Once the DNA tests come out during the divorce, he'll be lucky to get supervised visitation." I sat on our couch, the one I'd bought with my first big contracting paycheck, and stared at the evidence of my wife's betrayal. Every late night work meeting, every weekend girls' trip, every time she'd pushed me away in bed claiming exhaustion, it had all been lies. The anger that followed wasn't the hot, explosive kind. It was cold and methodical, like the way I approached a complex renovation project. Step by step, measuring twice, cutting once. I took photos of every message, every image, every damning conversation. Then I carefully placed the phone back in Sarah's bag and returned to the basement. But instead of fixing the pipe, I started planning. The next morning, Sarah left for her early workout at 6 a.m. sharp, gym bag in hand, kissing my cheek with the same lips that had been texting obscenities to another man. "Don't forget Tyler has practice at 4, she said, adjusting her designer workout clothes that cost more than I made in a week. "And Emma needs a ride to Jessica's house." "Sure thing, honey," I replied, forcing a smile. "Have a good workout." The word workout tasted like poison in my mouth. After she left, I sat at our kitchen table with a cup of coffee and started making lists. 22 years as a contractor had taught me that every successful project required careful planning, proper tools, and attention to detail. First, I needed to know everything about Derek Chen. A quick internet search revealed he was 34, divorced, and drove a silver BMW that he loved to show off on social media. His Instagram was full of gym selfies, expensive restaurant photos, and pictures of his downtown condo that probably cost more than my house. Derek worked at Pinnacle Marketing, the same firm where Sarah had been climbing the corporate ladder for the past 5 years. According to LinkedIn, he joined the company 8 months ago, right around the time Sarah started working longer hours. I spent the morning driving past Derek's condo, his office building, and the upscale gym where he apparently spent his lunch breaks. I wasn't stalking. I was gathering intelligence. There's a difference. At noon, I parked across the street from the Marriott downtown and waited. Sure enough, Sarah's Honda pulled into the parking garage at 12:15, followed 5 minutes later by Derek's BMW. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Lunch meeting running long. Won't be home until after 6. I laughed out loud, a bitter, ugly sound that scared me a little. My wife was upstairs screwing her boyfriend while texting me lies. The audacity was almost impressive. That's when I noticed Derek's car windows were down. I'd been carrying around a bucket of sewage water from this morning's pipework, planning to dump it in the storm drain behind our house. The smell was ungodly, a mixture of human waste, rotting food, and chemical decay that made my eyes water. The parking garage was empty except for a bored-looking attendant reading a magazine in his booth. I walked casually to Derek's BMW, glanced around once, and poured the entire bucket of sewage water into the driver's seat, passenger seat, and all over the expensive leather interior. The smell was immediate and overwhelming. I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote, "Next time, bring air freshener. A concerned citizen." I tucked the note under his windshield wiper and walked away, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and satisfaction. 2 hours later, I was back home pretending to work on the kitchen renovation when Sarah returned, looking flushed and disheveled. "How was your lunch meeting?" I asked innocently. "Fine," she replied quickly, avoiding eye contact. "Just boring marketing stuff." She disappeared into the bathroom for a long shower, and I heard her phone ringing repeatedly from the bedroom. When she finally answered, her voice was tense. "What do you mean your car was vandalized? At the hotel?" A pause. "No, I don't know anything about it. Maybe it was just random." But it wasn't random, and we both knew it. That evening, while Sarah was helping Emma with homework, I received another anonymous text. "Nice work today, but they know it was you." Attached was a security camera photo showing me clear as day, dumping sewage into Derek's car. The message continued. "They're planning something. Be ready." I stared at the photo, realizing I'd made my first mistake. I'd let emotion override planning, and now I was exposed. But instead of fear, I felt something else entirely. Excitement. For the first time in years, I was playing a game where the stakes actually mattered. And despite the blackmail threat, despite the risk of exposure, I was already planning my next move. If Sarah and Derek wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what 22 years of dealing with actual dirt had taught me. The blackmail photo arrived in my mailbox 3 days later, printed on glossy paper with a handwritten note. "Stop now or everyone sees this. Your choice." I was sitting in Murphy's boxing gym, a rundown place on the east side where I'd been training since high school. The owner, Tommy Murphy, was a 60-year-old Irish ex-boxer who'd seen every kind of human drama play out in his gym. "You look like someone pissed in your cornflakes," Tommy said, wrapping my hands before our usual sparring session. I showed him the photo and explained the situation, my wife's affair, the kids who might not be mine, the blackmail. Tommy listened without judgment, occasionally grunting or nodding. "So what are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know. Maybe I should just confront Sarah directly, try to work things out." Tommy laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the gym's concrete walls. "Kid, you're thinking like a victim. They've been planning this for months, maybe years. You think they're going to suddenly develop a conscience because you ask nicely?" He was right. Sarah had already demonstrated her capacity for long-term deception. She'd been documenting my supposed problems while creating them herself, gaslighting me into believing I was the issue in our marriage. "Don't just take hits," Tommy continued, tightening the hand wraps. "Hit back where it hurts." That weekend was Emma's school science fair, one of those mandatory parent events where everyone pretended their family was perfect. Sarah insisted we attend together, playing the happy couple for the other parents and teachers. We stood in the crowded gymnasium, surrounded by poster boards about solar systems and volcano experiments, while Sarah chatted with other mothers about college applications and summer vacation plans. "Jake's been so busy with work," she told Mrs. Henderson from down the street. "Sometimes I feel like a single mother." The comment stung because it was partially true. I had been working longer hours lately, trying to bring in extra money, while Sarah's corporate salary made mine look pathetic. That's when I saw Derek. He was standing near the refreshment table, wearing an expensive suit and talking to Principal Martinez. When he spotted Sarah, his face lit up with a smile that made my stomach turn. "Oh, that's Derek Chen from my office," Sarah said casually to the group of mothers. "He's thinking about moving to the district." Derek approached our group with the confidence of a man who'd been sleeping with another man's wife for months. "Sarah, so good to see you," he said, extending his hand to me. "You must be Jake. I've heard so much about you." I shook his hand, squeezing just hard enough to make him wince. "All good things, I hope?" "Of course," Derek replied, but his smile faltered slightly. Sarah jumped in quickly. "Derek's been helping me with some marketing strategies for Jake's business. We're trying to modernize his approach." It was a smooth lie, delivered with the kind of practiced ease that comes from months of deception. The other mothers nodded approvingly, impressed by Sarah's supportive wife act. "That's wonderful," Mrs. Henderson said. "It's so important for couples to support each other's careers." I watched Sarah and Derek exchange a quick glance. Barely perceptible, but loaded with meaning. They were enjoying this, getting off on the secret they shared, while I stood there like an idiot. That's when I snapped. "Actually," I said loudly enough for the entire group to hear, "Derek's been giving Sarah a lot of personal attention lately. Very hands-on approach to business development." The mothers looked confused, but Derek's face went pale. Sarah forced a laugh. "Jake's been working so hard, sometimes his sense of humor gets a little strange." "Strange?" I continued, my voice getting louder. "What's strange is how many late-night business meetings you two have been having." "Jake, please," Sarah hissed, grabbing my arm. "You're embarrassing yourself." But I was just getting started. "Tell them about the hotel meetings, Sarah. Tell them about your special workout routine." The group of mothers was staring now, sensing drama but not understanding the context. Derek had backed away slightly, looking for an escape route. Principal Martinez appeared at Sarah's elbow. "Is everything all right here?" "Everything's fine," Sarah said quickly. "My husband's been under a lot of stress lately. Work pressures, you know how it is." She was already spinning the narrative, making me look like the unstable one. I could see it working, the concerned looks from the other parents, the way they stepped back slightly, treating me like a volatile element that might explode at any moment. "Come on, Jake," Sarah said firmly, taking my arm. "Let's go check on Emma's project." She led me away from the group, her grip tight enough to leave marks. "What the heck is wrong with you?" she whispered angrily once we were out of range. "Wrong with me?" I laughed bitterly. "That's rich, coming from someone who's been screwing her coworker for 8 months. Sarah's face went white, then red. "I don't know what you're talking about. The hotel meetings, Sarah? The burner phone? The explicit text messages? Should I go on?" For a moment, her mask slipped completely. I saw fear, calculation, and something else. A cold hatred that made me realize how little I actually knew about the woman I'd been married to for 20 years. Then the mask snapped back into place. "You've been going through my things," she said, her voice deadly quiet, stalking me, following me around like some kind of psychopath. "I've been trying to figure out why my wife has been lying to me for months." "We'll discuss this at home," Sarah said firmly, away from the children. But we both knew there would be no discussion. The war had officially begun. The anonymous texts kept coming over the next week, always late at night, always with information I couldn't have gotten on my own. "Derek's engaged to someone else. Check his Facebook. Your wife's been stealing money from the joint account. They're planning to frame you for something big." Each message came with photographic evidence, bank statements, social media screenshots, recorded phone conversations. Someone was feeding me intelligence, but I couldn't figure out who or why. The Facebook revelation hit hardest. Derek was indeed engaged to a woman named Jennifer Walsh, a pediatric nurse who looked like she'd never hurt a fly. Their engagement photos showed them hiking at fancy restaurants, posing with a golden retriever. The announcement was dated 6 weeks ago. So Derek was cheating on his fiancée with my wife, who was cheating on me with him. The web of deception was almost artistic in its complexity. I printed out the engagement photos and left them in Sarah's gym bag, along with a note. Congratulations on the upcoming wedding. Hope you're invited. Sarah found them that evening while I was helping Tyler with his algebra homework. I heard her gasp from the bedroom, followed by the sound of her phone dialing frantically. "We need to talk," she said when Derek apparently answered. "Now." She grabbed her keys and left without explanation, returning 3 hours later with red eyes and smeared makeup. "Where were you?" I asked, not looking up from the television. "None of your business," she snapped. But it became my business the next day when I received another anonymous text. "Check the parking lot behind Flanagan's Bar. Bring your camera." Flanagan's was a dive bar on the south side, the kind of place where people went to have conversations they didn't want overheard. I arrived at 7 p.m. and found Sarah's Honda parked next to Derek's BMW, which still reeked of sewage despite what must have been professional cleaning attempts. Through the bar's back window, I could see them at a corner table, engaged in what looked like a heated argument. Derek was gesturing angrily while Sarah dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. I positioned myself where I could hear their conversation through the partially open window. "She's going to destroy both of us," Derek was saying. "Jennifer's already suspicious about the smell in my car. If she finds out about us—" "She won't," Sarah interrupted. "Unless you do something stupid." "Stupid? Your husband dumped sewage in my car. He knows about us, Sarah. This whole thing is falling apart." "Jake doesn't know anything for certain. He's fishing, trying to get us to panic." Derek laughed bitterly. "He knows enough to humiliate us in public. What's next? Is he going to tell Jennifer? Post our messages online?" "He won't do anything," Sarah said with the cold confidence I'd come to recognize. "Because if he does, I'll destroy him. I've been documenting his erratic behavior for months. The drinking, the anger issues, the way he follows me around like a stalker." "What drinking? What anger issues?" Sarah smiled, and it was the most chilling expression I'd ever seen on her face. "The ones I'm going to create. A few calls to his biggest clients about his reliability problems, some photos of him at bars during work hours, maybe a domestic disturbance call or two. Jake's reputation will be finished." I was recording everything on my phone, but hearing my wife plan my systematic destruction was like being punched in the stomach repeatedly. "You're talking about framing him," Derek said, looking uncomfortable. "I'm talking about protecting us. Jake's been a useful idiot for 20 years, but he's outlived his purpose. The kids will be in college soon, and I'll have everything I need for a comfortable divorce." "And then what? We get married and live happily ever after?" Sarah's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Oh, Derek, you really think this is about love?" The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I drove home in a daze, trying to process the fact that my wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively plotting to destroy my life. That night, while Sarah was in the shower, I received another anonymous text. "DNA test kit under your truck's spare tire. Use it." I found the kit exactly where the message indicated, along with detailed instructions on how to collect samples without detection. The return envelope was already addressed to a lab in Columbus. I collected hair samples from Tyler and Emma's brushes, swabbed their toothbrushes, and added my own samples to the kit. Then I sat in my truck in the dark driveway, holding the envelope that might contain the answers to questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. But I had to know. After everything Sarah had put me through, after all the lies and manipulation, I deserved to know the truth about my own children. I dropped the envelope in a mailbox on my way to work the next morning and tried not to think about what the results might reveal. The answer came back 10 days later, delivered in a plain manila envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Tyler, 99.97% probability of paternity. Emma, 0% probability of paternity. I sat in my truck outside the post office, reading the results over and over until the words blurred together. Tyler was my son. Emma, the daughter I'd raised since birth, taught to drive, walked to school every day for 12 years, wasn't mine. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating that I actually laughed out loud. Sarah hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been living a lie for 17 years, letting me raise another man's child while planning to use that same child as a tool against me in divorce court. That's when something fundamental shifted inside me. The hurt, the confusion, the desperate desire to save my marriage, all of it evaporated, replaced by something cold and calculating. Sarah wanted to play games? She wanted to destroy my reputation, steal my money, and take away the children I'd raised? Fine. But she'd forgotten one important thing about contractors. We know how to tear things down just as well as we know how to build them up. And I was about to give her a masterclass in demolition. I spent the next 2 weeks in what Sarah probably thought was a depression. I came home from work, ate dinner in silence, and spent my evenings in the basement working on the plumbing. But I wasn't depressed. I was planning. The anonymous texts had stopped coming, but they'd served their purpose. Someone wanted Sarah and Derek exposed, and they'd given me all the tools I needed to do it properly. I opened a separate bank account and quietly moved half of our savings, money I'd earned with 22 years of backbreaking labor. If Sarah wanted to play financial games, she'd discover that I understood money better than she thought. I also hired a private investigator named Rita Kowalski, a former Cleveland cop who specialized in infidelity cases. Rita was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who charged reasonable rates and delivered thorough results. "Your wife's not very careful," Rita told me after a week of surveillance. "She and this Derek character meet at the same hotel every Tuesday and Friday. They use the same room, pay with the same credit card, even tip the housekeeping staff the same amount." She handed me a folder full of photographs, receipts, and documentation that would make any divorce lawyer salivate. "But here's the interesting part," Rita continued. "Derek's fiancée hired me 3 months ago to investigate him. She suspected he was cheating but couldn't prove it." "You're working both cases?" "Was. I dropped her case when you hired me. Conflict of interest. But I kept copies of everything, and Jennifer Walsh deserves to know what kind of man she's planning to marry." Rita's information gave me an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. I called Jennifer Walsh and asked to meet her for coffee, claiming to be a friend of Derek's who had some concerns about the upcoming wedding. She agreed, probably thinking I was going to share some embarrassing bachelor party story. Jennifer was exactly what she appeared to be in the Facebook photos: kind, genuine, and completely unaware that her fiancé was a lying sociopath. We met at a Starbucks near the hospital where she worked, and I felt genuinely bad about what I was going to tell her. "This is going to be difficult to hear," I began, sliding Rita's folder across the table. "But Derek's been having an affair with my wife for almost a year." Jennifer's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally a devastating sadness that made me want to punch Derek Chen in the face. "I know this is a lot to process," I continued gently, "but you deserve to know before you marry him." She looked through the photographs and documentation in silence, occasionally wiping tears from her eyes. "I knew something was wrong," she said finally. "The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the way he'd smell like perfume sometimes. But I trusted him." "I'm sorry. I know this isn't how you wanted to find out." Jennifer closed the folder and looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and determination. "What are you going to do about your wife?" she asked. "I'm still working on that part." "Well, when you figure it out, let me know if you need help. Derek's been lying to both of us, and I don't appreciate being made a fool of." We exchanged phone numbers, and I drove home feeling like I'd gained an unexpected ally. That evening, Sarah announced that she was attending a weekend marketing conference in Columbus with some colleagues from work. "Which colleagues?" I asked casually. "Derek, Linda from accounting, and a few others. It's a professional development thing." More lies, delivered with the same casual ease that had fooled me for months. "Sounds educational," I replied. "When do you leave?" "Friday morning. I'll be back Sunday evening." Perfect. That gave me an entire weekend to implement the next phase of my plan. On Friday morning, I kissed Sarah goodbye and wished her a productive conference. Then I called in sick to work and drove to Derek's downtown condo. I'd been watching his routine for weeks, and I knew he always went to his gym during lunch hour on Fridays. That gave me a 2-hour window to execute what I was already thinking of as the Jennifer surprise. Getting into the building was easier than expected. I simply waited for another resident to enter and followed them through the security door, carrying a toolbox and wearing work clothes that made me invisible to most people. Derek's condo was on the 8th floor, and his door lock was a standard deadbolt that took me less than 5 minutes to pick, a skill I'd learned during my wilder teenage years. The condo was exactly what I'd expected: expensive furniture, abstract art, and a kitchen that looked like it had never been used for actual cooking. But it was Derek's bedroom that interested me most. I set up a small camera in the corner, hidden behind a decorative plant, and connected it to a wireless transmitter that would send live video to my phone. Then I planted several small recording devices around the apartment and left everything exactly as I'd found it. The final touch was a bottle of champagne in Derek's refrigerator, along with a note that appeared to be from Sarah. "For our special weekend together, love S." I was back in my truck and driving home within 90 minutes, and Derek never knew I'd been there. That afternoon, I received a text from Jennifer Walsh. Derek just canceled our dinner plans, says he has to work late. Want to grab a drink and compare notes? I met Jennifer at a sports bar near her hospital, and we spent 2 hours sharing war stories about our respective cheating partners. She was funnier than I'd expected, with a sharp wit that reminded me why Derek's betrayal was such a waste. "So, what's the plan?" she asked after her third beer. "Are we going to catch them in the act, confront them publicly, key his car?" "Actually, I was thinking something a little more comprehensive." I explained my idea, and Jennifer's eyes lit up with an enthusiasm that was both attractive and slightly terrifying. "I love it," she said. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow night. But are you sure you want to be involved? This could get messy." Jennifer smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely happy. "Derek's been lying to me for months while I planned our wedding, picked out flowers, and sent save-the-date cards to my family. Messy sounds perfect." We spent the rest of the evening refining the plan, and by the time we parted ways, I felt like I had a real partner in crime. The war with Sarah and Derek was about to enter its final phase, and I was ready to show them what happened when you underestimated a contractor who'd spent his entire career solving problems. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made everything feel possible. Sarah and Derek thought they were safely hidden away at their fake conference, probably celebrating their successful deception with room service and expensive wine. They had no idea that Jennifer and I were about to turn their perfect weekend into a nightmare. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Jennifer would use her key to Derek's condo and surprise him with an early return from her weekend visit to her sister. I would be waiting outside with a camera to document whatever happened next. But first, I had a few phone calls to make. I started with Derek's office using a voice disguiser app on my phone to alter my voice. "Pinnacle Marketing, this is the weekend security service," I said when the answering service picked up. "We've received reports of suspicious activity in your building. Can you confirm that Derek Chen is authorized to be here on weekends?" "Let me check our records," the operator replied. "No, sir. Mr. Chen isn't scheduled to work this weekend. In fact, he's supposed to be at a conference in Columbus." "Thank you. We'll investigate the unauthorized access." Next, I called the Columbus hotel where the fake conference was supposedly taking place. "I'm trying to reach my wife, Sarah Morrison. She's attending your marketing conference this weekend." "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have any marketing conferences scheduled this weekend, and we don't have a Sarah Morrison registered." "Perfect." I made similar calls to Derek's gym, his favorite restaurant, and even his dry cleaner, leaving a trail of evidence that would be impossible for him to explain away later. At 8 p.m., Jennifer and I met in the parking garage of Derek's building. She looked nervous but determined, clutching her key ring like a tool. "Are you sure about this?" I asked one final time. "He's been making a fool of me for months," she replied. "It's time to return the favor." We took the elevator to the 8th floor, and I positioned myself in the stairwell with a clear view of Derek's door. Jennifer took a deep breath, inserted her key, and walked into the condo. What happened next exceeded even my wildest expectations. Jennifer's scream of surprise was perfectly genuine and loud enough to wake the neighbors. Through the hidden camera feed on my phone, I could see Derek and Sarah scrambling to cover themselves, their romantic evening interrupted by the arrival of Derek's supposedly out-of-town fiancée. "What the heck is going on here?" Jennifer shouted, her voice carrying clearly through the thin walls. Derek's response was a masterpiece of panic and stupidity. "Jennifer, I thought you were visiting your sister." "I was. I came back early to surprise you. Who is this woman?" Sarah, to her credit, tried to take control of the situation. "Jennifer, I'm Sarah Morrison from Derek's office. We're working on a project together." "Without clothes?" Jennifer's voice rose to a pitch that probably shattered wine glasses in neighboring apartments. I was recording everything through the door's peephole, getting clear audio and video of the confrontation. But the best part was still coming. Jennifer had memorized her lines perfectly. "Derek, why does this woman have a key to your apartment? Why are there champagne glasses on the nightstand? Why is there a note in the refrigerator signed Love S?" Derek's attempts to explain were pathetic and contradictory. First, Sarah was a colleague. Then she was a client. Then she was just a friend who'd had too much to drink at dinner. Sarah tried a different approach. "Jennifer, you're clearly upset. Maybe we should discuss this when you're more rational." Wrong thing to say. "Rational!" Jennifer exploded. I'm planning our wedding while you're screwing my fiancé, and you want me to be rational? That's when things got physical. I heard the sound of something breaking, probably the expensive vase Derek kept on his coffee table, followed by more shouting and what sounded like a struggle. Through my phone screen, I could see Jennifer grabbing Derek's laptop and throwing it against the wall. Sarah was trying to get dressed while simultaneously attempting to calm Jennifer down, which only made the situation worse. "You ruined my life!" Jennifer screamed. "I sent out save-the-date cards! I bought a dress! I told my parents!" Derek made the mistake of trying to grab Jennifer's arm, which triggered a response that would have made Tommy Murphy proud. Jennifer landed a right cross that sent Derek stumbling backward into his expensive entertainment center. The sound of his 60-inch TV crashing to the floor was music to my ears, but I wasn't done yet. While Jennifer was providing the distraction, I used Derek's building's fire alarm system to trigger an evacuation. Within minutes, the hallways were full of residents evacuating the building, and Derek's neighbors got a clear view of him stumbling out of his apartment with a black eye and torn clothes, followed by two angry women. The crowd in the parking lot was treated to Jennifer's final performance. "This man has been cheating on me with a married woman. They've been lying to everyone for months." She threw Derek's engagement ring at his feet with enough force to chip the concrete. Sarah tried to slip away quietly, but I was ready for that too. I'd parked her car in, and when she tried to leave, she found all four tires mysteriously flat. "Need help with your car?" I asked, appearing beside her with a tire iron and a smile. Sarah's face went white when she saw me. "Jake, what are you doing here?" "Funny story. I got a call from the hotel in Columbus. They said there was no marketing conference this weekend. Isn't that strange?" Sarah's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "I also got some interesting DNA test results this week," I continued conversationally. "Want to guess what they said?" The color drained completely from Sarah's face. "Emma's not mine, is she, Sarah? How long were you planning to keep that secret?" By now, we had an audience. Derek's neighbors, the building security guard, even a few people who'd stopped to watch the commotion were listening to every word. Sarah tried to recover. "Jake, you're obviously upset. Let's discuss this at home, privately." "Privately? Like you and Derek have been discussing your relationship privately for the past year?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording from Flanagan's bar. Sarah's voice crystal clear as she described her plan to destroy my reputation and frame me for domestic violence. The crowd was getting larger, and several people were recording with their phones. Sarah's public humiliation was being broadcast live to social media. "That's enough," Sarah said, trying to push past me to her car. "Actually, we're just getting started." I handed her an envelope containing copies of all the evidence Rita had gathered. Hotel receipts, photographs, bank statements showing her theft from our joint account, and the DNA test results. "Your lawyer's going to love this," I said, "especially the part where you've been stealing money to pay for hotel rooms." Derek chose that moment to approach us, his face swollen and his expensive shirt torn. "Sarah, we need to get out of here," he said urgently. "We?" I laughed. "Derek, I don't think you understand. Your fiancé just destroyed your apartment and announced your affair to half the city. Your engagement is over, your reputation is ruined, and I'm pretty sure your boss is going to have some questions about your weekend conference activities." Derek's face crumpled as the reality of his situation hit him. His career, his engagement, his carefully constructed life, all of it was collapsing in real time, but I wasn't finished. "Oh, and Derek, remember that sewage I dumped in your car? That was just the appetizer." I pulled out a second phone and showed him the video feed from the cameras I'd hidden in his apartment. "Smile, you're on camera. The whole thing. Jennifer's performance was Oscar-worthy, don't you think?" Derek lunged at me, which was exactly what I'd been hoping for. 22 years of construction work and regular boxing training had kept me in decent shape, while Derek's gym routine was apparently more about looking good than actual fighting. I sidestepped his clumsy attack and landed a solid punch to his solar plexus that dropped him to his knees, gasping for air. The crowd cheered. "That's for my wife," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "And this is for my daughter." I grabbed the bucket of sewage water I'd prepared for the occasion, a special blend of the worst-smelling waste from my latest plumbing job, and poured it over Derek's head. The smell was immediate and overwhelming. People in the crowd started backing away, covering their noses and laughing at the same time. Derek was on his hands and knees, covered in human waste and vomiting on the pavement, while his neighbors recorded every moment for posterity. Sarah was crying now, mascara streaming down her face as she realized that her carefully planned future had just exploded in the most public way possible. "Jake, please," she begged. "Think about the children." "I am thinking about them," I replied. "Tyler's my son, and he deserves to know what kind of person his mother really is. As for Emma," I paused, letting the DNA test results sink in. "Emma deserves to know who her real father is." I handed Sarah a second envelope containing copies of everything I planned to share with our children, our neighbors, our friends, and anyone else who'd been fooled by her perfect wife and mother act. "The divorce papers will be filed Monday morning," I told her. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I walked away from the chaos I'd created, leaving Sarah standing next to her car with flat tires, Derek writhing in sewage on the pavement, and Jennifer already posting videos of the entire confrontation to her social media accounts. My phone was buzzing with text messages and missed calls, but I ignored them all. I had one more stop to make before going home. The community center was packed for the monthly neighborhood association meeting. These gatherings were usually boring affairs where people complained about potholes and discussed upcoming block parties. But tonight was different. Tonight, I was going to tell everyone the truth. I'd spent Sunday morning preparing my presentation while Sarah packed her belongings and moved out of our house. She'd tried one last time to negotiate, offering to go to marriage counseling and work things out. But her heart wasn't in it. We both knew the marriage was over. Tyler and Emma had taken the news about the divorce surprisingly well, but the DNA revelation had hit Emma hard. She'd locked herself in her room for hours before finally coming downstairs to ask me the question I'd been dreading. "Am I still your daughter?" "Forever and always," I'd told her, and meant every word. "Biology doesn't change the fact that I've loved you since the day you were born." But Emma deserved to know the whole truth, and so did everyone else who'd been living Sarah's lies. The community center meeting started at 7 p.m. with the usual agenda items: street maintenance, holiday decorations, complaints about barking dogs. I waited patiently through 45 minutes of mundane neighborhood business before asking for permission to address the group. "I have something important to share with everyone," I announced, standing up in the back row. Mrs. Henderson, who served as the association president, looked confused but nodded for me to continue. "Most of you know me as Jake Morrison from Maple Street. I've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years, and I've always tried to be a good neighbor and a contributing member of our community." Heads nodded around the room. People were listening politely, probably expecting me to complain about snow removal or propose a new playground. But I recently discovered that my wife, Sarah Morrison, has been lying to me, to our children, and to all of you for years. The room got very quiet very quickly. I pulled out a wireless microphone I'd borrowed from Tommy's gym and connected it to the community center's sound system. "Sarah has been having an affair with her coworker, Derek Chen, for almost a year. But that's not the worst part." I clicked a button on my laptop, and the first slide of my presentation appeared on the community center's projection screen. A photo of Sarah and Derek entering the hotel together. "The worst part is that she's been planning to frame me for domestic violence, steal our joint savings, and use our children as tools in a divorce designed to destroy my life." Gasps echoed around the room. Mrs. Henderson looked like she was going to faint. "I know this is uncomfortable to hear, but I believe our community deserves to know the truth about the people living among us." I clicked to the next slide, the bank statements showing Sarah's theft. "Sarah has been stealing money from our joint account to pay for hotel rooms where she meets her boyfriend. She's also been documenting fake evidence of alcohol misuse and anger management issues that don't exist." Another click brought up the audio recording from Flanagan's bar. "This is a conversation between Sarah and Derek, recorded last week, where they discussed their plan to destroy my reputation and business." I played 30 seconds of the recording, Sarah's voice crystal clear as she described her strategy for framing me. The room was dead silent except for the sound of people shifting uncomfortably in their chairs. "But here's the part that really gets me," I continued, clicking to the DNA test results. "I recently discovered that my 17-year-old daughter, Emma, isn't biologically mine. Sarah has been lying about Emma's paternity for her entire life." Mrs. Henderson stood up shakily. "Jake, I think that's enough. This is very personal information that maybe shouldn't be." "Shouldn't be what? Shared with a community that's been supporting Sarah's lies for years?" I clicked to the next slide. Photos from Saturday night's confrontation at Derek's apartment. This is what happened when Derek's fiancée discovered the affair. As you can see, Derek didn't handle the confrontation very well. The photos showed Derek covered in sewage, Sarah crying in the parking lot, and Jennifer throwing the engagement ring at Derek's feet. A few people in the audience were trying not to laugh. I want everyone to understand that I'm not the victim here, I continued. I'm the guy who figured out the game and decided to play it better than the people who started it. I clicked to the final slide, a photo of Sarah's packed suitcase by our front door. Sarah has moved out of our house and will be filing for divorce. Derek has been fired from his job and his engagement is over. Their plan to destroy my life has backfired spectacularly. I disconnected the microphone and looked around the room at the faces of my neighbors, some shocked, some sympathetic, some clearly entertained by the drama. I know this isn't the kind of thing we usually discuss at these meetings, I said, but I wanted you to hear the truth from me before you heard rumors from someone else. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat nervously. Well, Jake, thank you for sharing. I think we're all a little overwhelmed by this information. I understand, but I hope you'll remember this the next time someone tries to convince you that I'm an unstable husband who drinks too much and can't control his temper. I packed up my laptop and headed for the door, but several neighbors stopped me on the way out. Good for you, Jake, said Mr. Peterson from 3 houses down. Sarah always seemed too good to be true. If you need anything, let us know, added the Johnsons from across the street. We've got your back. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. The truth was finally out, and the people who mattered knew exactly what kind of person Sarah really was. But I had one final surprise waiting for me. Jennifer Walsh was sitting on my front porch when I got home from the community meeting, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing a smile that suggested she had good news to share. How did it go? She asked, handing me one of the cups. Better than expected. I think the whole neighborhood knows the truth now. Good, because I have some updates on our mutual friends. We sat on the porch swing I'd built 3 summers ago, back when I still believed Sarah and I would grow old together in this house. Derek got fired this morning, Jennifer reported with obvious satisfaction. Apparently his boss didn't appreciate the weekend publicity, especially after someone sent the company copies of all those hotel receipts. Someone did that? How terrible! Jennifer grinned. I also heard from a friend at the hospital that Sarah's been calling around trying to find a lawyer who'll take her case on contingency. Apparently, most of her stolen money went to hotel bills and expensive gifts for Derek. Karma's a beautiful thing. It gets better. Derek's landlord is evicting him because of the damage to his apartment and the complaints from other tenants about the smell. He's been staying at a motel near the airport. I sipped my coffee and tried to feel sorry for Derek, but couldn't quite manage it. What about you? I asked. How are you handling everything? Jennifer was quiet for a moment, staring out at the street where leaves were falling from the old oak trees. Honestly, I feel like I dodged a bullet. If you hadn't shown me those photos, I'd be married to Derek by now, probably pregnant and completely clueless about what kind of man he really is. I'm glad I could help. You did more than help. You saved my life. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set behind the houses across the street. It occurred to me that this was the most peaceful I'd felt in months. So what happens now? Jennifer asked eventually. Now I rebuild. The divorce will be messy, but I've got enough evidence to ensure Sarah doesn't get much. The house is mine. I bought it before we got married and never added her name to the deed. Tyler will probably want to stay with me, and Emma. Well, we'll figure that out. And your business? Actually, it's been better than ever. Apparently, the whole neighborhood drama has been great advertising. I've got 3 new clients this week alone. Jennifer laughed. Nothing like a good revenge story to drum up business. What about you? What's next for Jennifer Walsh? I'm thinking about traveling. Maybe taking that trip to Europe I always talked about but never took because Derek said it was too expensive. Sounds perfect. Jennifer stood up and smoothed down her jeans. I should let you get some rest. It's been a long weekend. Jennifer, wait. I stood up too, suddenly not wanting her to leave. Would you maybe want to have dinner sometime when all this craziness dies down? She smiled, and it was the first genuinely happy expression I'd seen on her face since the day we met. I'd like that, Jake. I'd like that a lot. After Jennifer left, I went inside and found Tyler doing homework at the kitchen table while Emma watched TV in the living room. They both looked up when I walked in, and I could see the questions in their eyes. How are you guys doing with all this? I asked, sitting down across from Tyler. It's weird, Tyler admitted, but also Kind of cool that you fought back instead of just taking it. Emma joined us at the table, her expression more serious than her brother's. Are you really okay with me not being your biological daughter? She asked quietly. I reached across the table and took her hand. Emma, I changed your diapers, taught you to ride a bike, helped you with your homework, and worried about you every single day for 17 years. A DNA test doesn't change any of that. Tears welled up in her eyes. But what if my real father wants to meet me? Then we'll deal with that together, as a family. But nothing will ever change the fact that you are my daughter. Emma hugged me tightly, and I felt something inside my chest that had been broken for months finally start to heal. Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat in my workshop in the basement, surrounded by the tools and projects that had always been my refuge from the world's complications. My phone buzzed with a text from the anonymous number that had started this whole journey. Well done. You're stronger than she ever gave you credit for. I typed back, Who are you? The response came immediately. Someone who's been watching Sarah destroy good people for years. You're the first one who fought back. Why did you help me? Because bullies need to be stopped, and you were the right person to stop her. I stared at the phone for a long time, but no more messages came. Whoever my mysterious ally was, they'd accomplished their goal. Sarah's reign of manipulation was over, and I was free to rebuild my life on my own terms. I deleted the anonymous number from my phone and went upstairs to bed, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. 3 weeks later, I was installing new kitchen cabinets for Mrs. Chen, no relation to Derek, when my phone rang. It was my lawyer with news about the divorce proceedings. Sarah's agreed to all your terms, he reported. No alimony, minimal child support for Emma until she turns 18, and she's dropping all her previous allegations about domestic violence and substance misuse. What changed her mind? I think the evidence you provided was pretty persuasive. Plus, her lawyer advised her that fighting this would only result in more public embarrassment. Good. When will it be final? 6 weeks, maybe less. You'll be a free man by Christmas. After hanging up, I stood in Mrs. Chen's newly renovated kitchen and looked out her window at the neighborhood where I'd lived for 15 years. Some things had changed. Sarah was gone, Derek had moved away in disgrace, and several neighbors now treated me like a local hero. But the important things remained the same. I still had my kids, my business, and my self-respect. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and that sometimes the best way to handle a bully is to become a bigger bully. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Dinner tonight? I'm cooking. I smiled and typed back, I'll bring dessert. As I packed up my tools and prepared to leave Mrs. Chen's house, I reflected on everything that had happened over the past few months. Sarah had tried to destroy me, but instead she'd given me the greatest gift possible, the truth about who she really was and who I could be when I stopped being afraid to fight back. The old Jake Morrison had been a victim, a man who let his wife steal his money, cheat on him, and plan his destruction while he fixed pipes in the basement and pretended everything was fine. The new Jake Morrison was something else entirely, a man who understood that sometimes the only way to deal with waste is to flush it away and start fresh. I drove home through the October afternoon, past the houses where my neighbors lived their quiet lives, past the school where my children were learning that truth was more important than politeness, past the community center where I'd told an entire room full of people that I refused to be anyone's victim ever again. Sarah had wanted to play games, and I'd shown her what happened when you challenged someone who knew how to build things up and tear them down with equal skill. The war was over, and I'd won it by refusing to fight fair against people who'd never intended to fight fair themselves. Some people might call what I did revenge, but I preferred to think of it as justice, messy, public, and absolutely necessary justice that ensured Sarah and Derek would never again mistake kindness for weakness. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Tyler and Emma waiting on the front porch, probably eager to hear about the divorce news. They looked happy and relaxed, no longer carrying the weight of their mother's lies and manipulation. I'd kept my family together by tearing it apart, saved my children by showing them the truth about their mother, and found love by refusing to accept betrayal. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when I married Sarah 20 years ago, but it was the ending I deserved. Honest, painful, and ultimately liberating. I walked up the front steps to greet my children, ready to start the next chapter of our lives with no secrets, no lies, and no tolerance for people who thought they could destroy us. The house still needed work. The kitchen renovation was only half finished, the basement still smelled like old pipes, and the roof would need replacing before winter. But it was ours, and we were free. Sometimes that's all you need to build something beautiful.